Welcome into another edition, Hail Varsity Postgame, but it's a bye-week edition. Austin Jacobsen, Ravi Lulla joining you today across Herd Sports, Hail Varsity, wherever you're looking for Husker football content, you can find it with us. And Ravi, it's a bye week, so a little bit weird. Luckily, we have great college football coming up that we'll be able to pay attention to and watch, but it is a little odd. We've kind of had a really fast pace of the football season so far, it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, that's the terrible thing about football season is it always goes way faster than, like, we're a third of the way through the season.
It felt like last week we were just gearing up for an Arrowhead game on a Thursday night.
Cannot wait for Arrowhead, cannot wait for game one, and now it's like you're 4 games in. Your season's a third of the way over.
And speaking of that, just going through the season as it is, because this is a bye-week edition of a Hail Varsity Postgame, so we want to just give you our thoughts through the first quarter of the season. But starting back from where that Cincinnati game was to where we are now, it feels like we've probably learned a lot about where Nebraska is heading through the rest of the season, but it doesn't feel like a finished product. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah, I don't think so at all. I think a lot's going to change between now and the end of the year. I think that's the nature with most teams, especially teams that are, I think we keep forgetting, this is still a very young Nebraska team. They're old in spots, but they are young, and even in some of the spots where they're old, they're pretty inexperienced. I use this example with before the season with DB. Javen Wright coming into this year in his 7th year of college had 4 starts. Mm-hmm. He had 3 more years of college than college starts, right? So old guy, inexperienced guy, right? Mm-hmm. There's a big difference there. But in general, this is a young team. I know spots on the offensive line, they're a little bit older. Spots in the secondary, they're a little bit older. For the most part, super young team. So I expect them, especially in some key spots, to get quite a bit better throughout the course of the season.
Okay, so that's where I want to start some of this with roses and thorns and talk about the positives and negatives, because it's coming off a loss, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone only wants to think about what happened on September 20th and an upsetting loss for a lot of Nebraska football expectations. But we heard earlier this week on Herd Sports Live with Mike Schaefer that, listen, no one in Nebraska's media or general sense, even the national media, as much as we want to discredit them when it comes to Nebraska football, everyone,
sometimes they deserve discredit.
Well, sometimes. Thank you, Tom.
We may get to that.
when it comes to some of the things that we've heard, through the general consensus, Nebraska was going to suffer some losses this season. And the Michigan game was one that a lot of people circled and said, hey, this isn't a game you're going to win. How do you take what was the game against Michigan and kind of look forward, I guess, just from like fan perspective? Because it's been truly negative the first couple of days when we got out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is, I don't even look at it as a game that you weren't expecting to win, because I thought they could, and I thought they were going to win this game, right? So this I predicted as a win before the season.
I did too. I thought it'd be later on in the season, which we can get to, but yeah.
Yeah, I predicted it as a win week of. So certainly a game I thought they were going to win. And watching it, I realized I apparently saw it differently than a lot of people. I thought a game they were very capable of winning. And, I mean, if I literally switched 2 plays, and I know, butterfly effect, things like that, I can switch 2 plays and get this to a 2-score game for Nebraska. You make 1 tackle on one of the long runs, and you score on 4th and goal from the 5-yard line. That's it. All of a sudden, it's a 2-score Nebraska game, which is what I thought was going to happen. So I think it was closer to that. I also think there was an opportunity for Michigan to blow Nebraska out. Mm-hmm. There was a point in that game, had Nebraska not rallied and had it play out a little differently, the forced fumble by Elijah Judy was enormous in changing the tide of that one. I also think it was a game that, more often than not, over the last 10 years, Nebraska does get blown out.
Yeah.
Right? So I do think that is progress that does say something. But I guess my point of all that is, while I predicted a win, this is a game that, I know people hate this, but I'm going to do it anyway. It was an acceptable loss.
Right.
Right? You look at the games on the course of the season.
Do you take it as a learning loss, or do you phrase them kind of in the same way?
I mean, those are totally different things for me.
Right.
I think learning loss is a coach thing, which is more useful. When I say acceptable loss, I'm talking purely as a fan base, right?
Yeah.
You look at a schedule and you go, hey, these are the games I wouldn't be mad about losing. Like teams that you think are at least as good or better than you are.
Yeah. So
right?
Really, like you said, the first 3 games of the season, any of those change to L's, Nebraska football fans have probably more reason to gripe.
Way different. Although I do think we're going to look back and think Cincinnati's a pretty good football team.
Listen, I agree. Like I said it that same night when we were on Hail Varsity Postgame that night.
And listen, I probably didn't give Cincinnati enough credit coming in. You watch them, it's pretty clear in game and you're like, I think this is more about Cincinnati being better than it is Nebraska not being as good. You watch what Cincinnati's done against lesser competition, and they've blown the doors off people. Yeah. So I do think Cincinnati's a pretty good team in the Big 12 this year. But, if Nebraska loses any of those 3 games, the fan base is very upset. Michigan was the first game that would be an acceptable loss. There's 2 more on the schedule, USC and Penn State. Those are 3 acceptable in the eyes of a fan base. I know in the moment, no loss feels acceptable, but let's 30,000-foot view this thing for a second. At the look of an entire schedule, there were 3 games you'd look at and be like, if Nebraska loses these, it's not the end of the world, right? And those were Michigan, USC, and Penn State. I would argue Iowa should be in that category.
That's going to be my next point, yeah.
But as Nebraska fans, myself included, we don't feel like Iowa is on our level. Even though they've been better as a program, every time we look at them, we say, hey, we're more talented than they are. I don't understand how they ever win. Last year's a great example. I still don't know how they won that game. It just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
That's a game that even though Iowa is of, I think, the same caliber as some of those other teams most years, I don't totally know what they are yet this year. Just from a fan perspective, Iowa's never an acceptable loss, right? So that's kind of the outlier, but we'll call it 3.5.
Yeah.
Right? Call it 3.5 teams that are.
But I can already hear the other people on the other side of this, video camera yelling at us and being like, Ravi, but it's not who they lost to, it's how they lost the game, right? And that's where everyone's concerns have been so far this week.
And I would argue that's even less concerning based on how that Michigan game played out because, and I'll finish here first, almost everybody picked 9-3 or 8-4.
Yeah.
I picked 10-2, but if there's 3.5 acceptable losses, where does that leave you? 9-3 or 8-4.
Right.
Okay. So this was going to happen at some point in the season. As far as how they lost, I'm glad you brought that up. This is one of the least concerning losses in recent memory for me for Nebraska football. And let me tell you why. Nebraska didn't beat themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. There weren't, I believe they only had 3 penalties for the entire game for under 10 yards. 3 penalties. Even in turnovers, right? And it was, listen, did Dillon make the wrong throw or the wrong read? Did Lindemeyer not sit down on the right route the way Coach Rule said? Probably a little bit of both. If he waits a little bit, Dane Key breaks open on the slant, right? It's going to happen. He leads the Big Ten in passing attempts. There's going to be some interceptions in there. He's 11-1 on the season. Right. I will take that ratio all day.
And also, I think we forget when the interception happened as well. People want to point to it, but comparative, like you said, when other interceptions have occurred or other major turnovers have happened in one-score losses for Nebraska, this is the second drive of the game.
Just go back to Iowa.
Yeah.
Crucial fumble, loses the direct line from that fumble to losing the football game.
Yes.
Right? Direct line.
Yep.
So, there are crucial timing mistakes that Nebraska didn't have. Nebraska didn't go and beat themselves. Now, if you want it, not in the turnovers, not in the penalties, things like that. Nebraska had lost that game because of execution, which to me is huge progress from where Nebraska has been over the course of even the last 2 years, but certainly over the last 10, right? Nebraska would lose games because they beat themselves constantly. They'd kick the ball to the wrong side of a field on a punt, or they'd fumble. I mean, you want to talk about a 3-point loss to Michigan that felt different? Let's go back to 32-29 a few years ago where Adrian Martinez has a crucial fumble late, right? None of that happened. There wasn't I get that there was a missed field goal. It was a 44-yarder, which nothing over 40 is a gimme, right? And first missed field goal of the season. There wasn't a special teams gap. There wasn't a block punt. There wasn't a punt return for a touchdown. They didn't even kick the ball out of bounds this week. There wasn't a special teams problem. There was not a horrible turnover. There was not egregious penalties. This is not how Nebraska's been losing close games.
Right.
It's just not. This was a game where Michigan out-executed Nebraska. And I know we don't like to say that because for some reason that makes us feel worse. I think it should make you feel dramatically better because we're talking about one better run fit, one better play call, or one different decision after the play call has been made. If Dillon flips that ball out to Emmett Johnson instead of the shovel pass to Luke Lindemeyer, that's a touchdown on the first drive of the game. Yep. We might be having a whole different conversation here, right?
Pace of the game's completely different there, too.
Pace of the game's completely different. And listen, it was the right play call. Dillon probably thought, hey, Luke's open. Let's get the 1 yard. We'll go from there. Whatever. Whatever the decision is there, we're talking about just a little bit better execution. And I liked what Coach Rule said, by the way, because I can sit here as a fan and say, hey, they're 2 plays away from winning that game, certainly 4 plays away from winning that game. What I like is that he said, yeah, but we were 45 plays away from playing to our standard, right? You don't want to play just good enough to win.
Yeah.
You want to play, and if he said, hey, they were really, I'd actually be really concerned if he's like, yeah, there were only about 3-4 plays we didn't play to our standard.
Which, I'll be honest, in 2 years ago, in year one of Matt Rule, there were some times that we heard him get up in a press conference and he was just like, we're just not playing well. And he said it, veiled and in different tones and in different ways. But the tone of this press conference after Michigan, comparative to what we had heard from the first season when they were unable to close out November, completely different narratives too, and completely different teams.
And think about it this way, right? If you're playing, like, let's say you're playing at 95% of what you think your best game is, right? And then you still lose by 3 points, you're like, oh, man, that's rough. They're just better than we are, right? If you sit there and you lose by 3 points to a Michigan team that was top 15 preseason, probably ends up top 15 as well, and you sit there and you go, okay, I think there was 130 total plays in the game between offense and defense. 45 of those, that's a third of the plays. We didn't reach our standard on about a third of the game, and it was still a 3-point game. To me, that's very encouraging, especially coming up on a bye week where, again, it's not horrific turnovers. It's, hey, I need you to get in that run gap a little bit faster. I need you to not play peekaboo when you're as a linebacker when the lineman gets to the second level and you can't decide which way to go. It's like those are things that are coachable, teachable, fixable. And that's what Nebraska lost on against Michigan. Like I said, I think it's one of the most encouraging losses. And listen, not a moral victory guy.
Right.
I'm talking about moving forward.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking about
because you can't go back. There's only one way to go.
Yeah. Listen, that's a loss. It counts as a loss. Whatever. The long runs count just the same as the short ones, right? But when I sit here and I go, okay, what does it mean moving forward? I'm super encouraged by that loss, if it has to be a loss, right? Because I go, okay, all the things that I thought went wrong, and I'm sure you'll bring up some other things that I haven't talked about yet to try and poke holes in this. But
that's my job.
Of all the things that I saw went wrong, most of them I looked at and I go, that's fixable in season. This isn't a, hey, we got to go recruit better players. And listen, Coach Rule talked about, you always want better players, right? But this isn't like, oh, this is not a thing that we can do with the guys on this roster. That's not the sense I got at all.
Okay, so let's start back from the beginning, and even before, let's go into fall camp. We're in June, July. I'm, listening to your show every single day. I've heard kind of the same speech that you had to give 5 days out of the week for, 18 weeks in a row. It felt like once we got out of May into the start of the season before we got to Arrowhead. There were certain topics and certain points that you hit on, and I want to kind of bring those back up and see where you feel about them now. I don't want to start on a negative side, so I do want to start on a positive side, especially just from where I'm at. I have heard more this past couple of days, and it continues to get brought up about running backs and depth and finding a number 2 back. I think we're also forgetting a part of the conversation that is, I don't think Emmett Johnson's a question mark. That's my personal opinion. Yeah. And I understand you want running back depth. You would love to have a second piece to be able to say, hey, if it's not Emmett's day, if they're bottling him up, who else can we go to? I completely agree with that type of narrative and that conversation. But I do think we are not giving the credit that is due to an Emmett Johnson that has become, truthfully, a workhorse running back. And I think we can say in all facets of his game, running the football, pass protection, and as well catching the ball. He's been very notable in that sense, too, that you can look and say, there's a number 1 running back in Lincoln. And yes, the offseason conversation. Should you have brought in a Marty Brown? Should you have tried to pursue someone else in the transfer portal? That's great. I would have loved to have a number 2 back as well that's more defined than where we are in week 5 of the college football season. Emmett Johnson is RB1, and I felt that from probably the end of the first quarter against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think he's played really well. And I think that's a good point to bring up because for the most part, he was a question mark. Like, I know that the coaching staff said, hey, there's a clear-cut running back 1, and that's fine for them. But in terms of production in actual games, we hadn't seen what we've seen so far. I mean, if he had played even a couple snaps in the second half against Houston Christian, he has 3 straight 100-yard rushing games to start the season. I think he's in the top 5 or 6 in conference of rushing yards for the Big Ten right now. Like, that's a guy that's had a really good season so far. And I get that what he ended up with, like 65 yards against Michigan.
Right.
I get that some people wanted him to get some more touches and for Nebraska to run the ball a little bit. He also had 5 receptions for like about 30 yards, 32 yards against Michigan as well.
If it's not a carry, he's touching the ball.
So, and that's the other thing is I think that's one of the valuable things, not just about what Emmett Johnson does. I think it's to a certain extent about the way they've used Heinrich Harburg so far as well, the way they're using Isaiah Mosey in kind of a hybrid role now that Bonner's out. I think they're using some of those quick outs as extended run plays. I call them extended handoffs, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between dumping the ball out to Emmett Johnson in the flat and doing a toss sweep? Like, really, practically what's the difference?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, a better one-on-one opportunity for Emmett to break a tackle and go upfield,
right,
without having to have all the other bells and whistles of blocking in front of you.
But if you're a run the damn ball guy, you're going to see one and be like, yeah, power football, and you're going to see the other and be like, quit chucking the ball all around.
Right. Yep.
Like, it's the same thing, guys.
Yep.
It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's why I looked at it and I go, okay, well, if Emmett gets 15 carries and 5 receptions, that's 20 touches. I don't care how the touches come. I really don't. Whether it's 15 and 5, whether it's 20 and 0, like, however they're getting him the ball, that's how they're affecting the game in that way.
Yeah.
And certain teams are going to give you looks that allow you to just hand the ball off or to do more traditional running game. And other teams are going to give you looks where you got to get into an RPO and give yourself some options, doing some other things. That was the Michigan game. I think he ended up so basically 20 touches for just under 100 yards.
Probably,
90,
somewhere around there.
90-some yards. So, again, 4 yards a touch. Would you like that closer to 5? Absolutely.
Yep.
But I don't have any concerns about Emmett Johnson. I think you're right. Like, he has established himself as, yes, not only am I the RB1 in terms of the depth chart, in terms of my production and who I am as a back, I am RB1.
And I've heard the conversation about, they're worried about his workload and everything. Yeah, I agree. But and I think you can understand this too, when you're on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday night playing football in Memorial Stadium, the coaching staff is not going, he had too many touches last week, so we better wean off of Emmett Johnson this week. They'll worry about that on Sunday and Monday and say, how can we configure a different plan to try to, alleviate some of this so we can get him to the Iowa game, we can get him to a bowl game or whatever the case is when you think about the longevity of the season. Now, this is a part of the conversation that you're probably ready to bite your lip on, but when it comes to the defensive line, more questions have definitely come up than answers over the past, especially week. But where were you heading into the Michigan game with the defensive line? Because you were very high on them. I mean, you were questioning other people's questions about the defensive line openly on the show. Where do you sit with them now, especially as you've seen them against a Big Ten opponent and an offensive line that was pretty impressive in the Wolverines? Yeah,
so I think there's a couple things here. A, they haven't been as good as I thought they would be.
Yeah.
B, I don't think they've been as bad as everyone else seems to think they were, especially against Michigan. Like, watch that tape. Now, did they dominate, come off blocks, and make huge plays? No, they didn't. That's where I don't think they're as good as I thought they were. I still think that's possible by the end of the season, by the way. This is a very young and inexperienced group. But they're not there yet. I will say some of the flashes we've seen from Williams-Winnari, where he's running down Bryce Underwood sideline to sideline, and he's making plays, and there's been Keona Davis splash plays. Elijah Judy played his best game of the season against Michigan. Seems like Riley Van Poppel's finally starting to come on a little bit here. I do think the potential to be the defensive line I thought they could be is still there. The point I want to make is, go watch that Michigan game and just watch the lines. I know it's super boring. They did a BTN and 60 for you. But, to not watch the ball for a lot of people is boring, right?
Yeah.
So, but just watch it for a little bit. Most of if Nebraska's defensive line was getting killed, it would have been 6 yards, 8 yards, 7 yards.
We heard Rule say that on Monday as well.
12 yards, right? That's what it looks like when a defensive line is getting killed. Michigan sustained one drive the entire day.
Yep.
That's not what it looks like when a defensive line is getting killed. It's just not. Okay? And I don't care what level of football it is. If your defensive line is getting smoked, you will see drive after drive after drive after drive. We've seen it in years past where we're sitting there and go like, how is Minnesota just melting 7 minutes off the clock every time they have the ball? This is a thing that has happened, right? That's not what happened against Michigan. They had 3 huge plays. And listen, Coach Rule said this. One of them, the one on Underwood, where they clear out the backers from the motion and everything, a defensive lineman has to make an extraordinary play in order to stop that from being a touchdown, or you have to make a different defensive call where you leave somebody in. Both of those are fine. Neither of those is your defensive line getting dominated. They weren't getting blown off the ball. All I watch is people winning one-on-ones. This is usually my third rewatch when I'm just watching lines, is who's winning one-on-ones and where does the line of scrimmage get reestablished one way or the other. And I'm going to tell you, it didn't get reestablished against Nebraska's defensive line very often. It was neutral more often than not. They weren't doing the reestablishing either, but it was neutral more often than not. And so I'm not nearly as discouraged about the defensive line as other people are. I will say, if the defensive line, until the defensive line gets to the point where I think they can be, which I do think they will get there because of guys like Williams Nwaneri and Keona Davis, and if Elijah Judy can duplicate his performance that he had against Michigan, then I do think they'll start to make those plays. In the meantime, I do need the second and third level guys to be better in their run fits and be better tacklers than they have been, right? So have they been as good as I thought they were? Absolutely not, right? Not as disruptive. Haven't made as many havoc plays, because I thought that was the trade you were going to make, right?
That was one of the last conversations you had on the morning show leading into the Cincinnati game, was how disruptive can the defensive line be, because that's the mark of a great defensive line. Nebraska fans are obviously, very privy to being able to see what dominant defensive linemen look like and what a dominant defensive line does appear as, but there are also different forms of it, right? Some schemes call for different types, but realistically, most defensive lines, if you have 4 guys who can do most of the damage themselves, that's what any defensive coordinator would want.
Absolutely. And we saw that a lot from Michigan. Like, Michigan's defensive line performed really well. They also did some things that they had not been doing.
Right.
They put one out in like a wide 9, way out to rush the passer pretty much the entire second half. Like, that's not something they'd been doing. And that's also, like, not their defensive line. That's a blitzer linebacker who just was doing it every down, right? Like, that's not a defensive lineman. But that's a different point. I thought the trade-off would be, I fully acknowledge the run defense probably would take a step back this year because you don't have 2 huge guys in the middle plugging everything up, right? I thought the trade-off would be you trade a little bit of that for the havoc plays, for the disruptive, the turnovers, the strip sacks, the tackles for loss, and you'll make that trade, right? I think it ends up being even if you're like, hey, we give up a little bit more in this area, but we get more back here in the havoc plays. We haven't gotten the get more part of that yet. I also don't think that the part they've given up has been as dramatic as people seem to think because of, let's be honest, explosive plays feel terrible.
Yeah.
They feel awful.
Yep.
But almost never is an explosive play exclusively the D-line's fault, right? Maybe they don't set you up in a great place to start.
There's layers to it, yeah.
But once you're past about 6 to 8 yards, that starts to be on everybody else as well.
Yeah.
Right? I'll blame the defensive line for the first 6 to 8 yards the running back gets. After that, we got to have other conversations about the rest of the defense and their run fits.
And that's definitely a part of the conversation we'll have here in just a minute. But I keep thinking about this and trying to keep it positive. It's hard to do it after a bye week, right? But I know Nebraska fans are scarred. They have all the tissue and stuff they're trying to recover from and whatnot. But I know that we're definitely a damaged fan base when you look at how talented and how well the receivers have adjusted into the new offense and have essentially dominated over the first 4 weeks of the season and have had individual moments to shine. We saw Ja'Cory Barney last week, and Isaiah Hunter had a big play and a key play in the Cincinnati game. Dane Key was very impressive in the 2 non-conference games in between there as well. But again, it's almost like the Emma Johnson thing. We're so privy to looking at all of the negative things that could be going on. Oh, well, we didn't like this read. Oh, well, this guy had, whatever issue. Oh, the offensive line, defensive line. Those are definitely acceptable, right? You can look at those. But to not praise what the receivers have done so far this season, I think is impressive. And as I count, I'm pretty sure that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different receivers that have caught a touchdown, or targets, I should say, that have caught a passing touchdown this season, whether it's from Dylan Raiola or TJ Lateef. Nonetheless, that's impressive in itself and definitely not something that Nebraska had done in years past.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people were hesitant this year with the transfer wide receivers coming in and Key and Hunter and being like, well, we heard this last year and we heard that, Nair and Banks were going to be those guys and whatever. And I get it. I get the hesitation. I get the scar tissue. I get the baggage. I get all of it. The wide receivers have been really, really good.
Yeah.
And not just those guys. Barney, listen, I love that dude. I don't know how else to say it.
Dog.
He is, I still believe, I've said this since last year, pound for pound, the toughest guy on the team. You're going to have a hard time finding me anybody in the country that I think is pound for pound tougher than Ja'Cory Barney. And he's a playmaker. He's not just like, oh, I'm a tough guy, whatever. That dude goes and makes plays, right? Whether it's he wants the ball every time it gets punted back there. He wants the ball every time he runs a route. Like, that is a dude that is really, really good, really, really dynamic. And Isaiah Hunter's been awesome. Dane Key has been really good.
And not only just catching the ball. It's the entire aspect of the receiving core, right? Like, I've been impressed with downfield blocking. Like, they haven't had too many opportunities. This time last year, after the Illinois game, we were talking about, receivers can't get off of press coverage. Receivers aren't blocking downfield. We can't open up 12, 15-yard runs because they're not doing X, Y, and Z. We're not having those questions 4 weeks into the season.
Yeah, I mean, look at the way that, again, if you can get your hands on some all-22 film, or every once in a while, go back. I think ESPN has this in their app still. There's an aerial view, there's a sky view of the entire Cincinnati game that was played on ESPN. Just go back and watch that and look at guys get open.
Yeah.
Right? Guys are getting open all the time. Now, part of that is the receivers being better. Part of that is Dylan checking them into the correct plays based on the coverage that he's seeing, which is elite work on his part, Tom Fernelli. I will say you by name every single time. Elite work on his part.
Yep.
That's why he's wide open. It's not like Michigan just forgot to coverage of Corey Barney on that touchdown.
Yeah, you mean to tell me that his first read's not open every single time he completes 70+% of his passes?
Yeah, 75% of his passes. But he, apparently he can't make the routine play.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
all right, bud.
Yeah.
But no, that he's wide open because Dylan checked them into that play, and he caught Michigan with their hand in the cookie jar. They were running a stunt with their secondary on that play where the guy over Barney was trying to cover the flat, and they were trying to run like a robber look over top with Barney. Guess what? Hand in the cookie jar, 6 for Nebraska. That's all on Dylan Raiola.
Yep.
But also having the receiver be on the same page and knowing you can trust him to do that. Barney's been incredible. I think the entire receiving, and listen, you got some depth there too. We've seen Quinn Clark. We've seen Cortez Mills make some key catches in key spots.
And both those guys were in at key moments in the Michigan game. I mean, they're not just making plays against Houston Christian anymore. No. Like, we are seeing them in the rotation. Yeah. Depth, talent, stars to the back. I mean, everybody is playing well in the receiving core.
Yeah, I mean, when's the last time you said, I feel like I can go 5-6 deep for Nebraska wide receivers and feel good about it?
Been a while. Hasn't been in the 20s, that's for sure.
I probably never. I mean, you have to take into context what Nebraska's been as their offense, right? But you have to. I don't know that there's ever been. I mean, certainly 5, right? I can go Key, Hunter, Barney, Mills, Clark, and I don't blink an eye.
Yeah, there are sets when Nebraska chooses to go 5 wide in an empty backfield that every single person on the field is a receiving threat. That you cannot just target one person and say that guy's going to catch it.
And guess what? They have a starter out for the season in Janarin Bonner, and we totally forget about it, right?
Yep.
Like that was a starter. That dude started for them. He was a single-digit number. Mm-hmm. That dude's a starter. So they are 5 deep, missing one of their starters, and we don't even blink an eye. Incredibly happy with how the wide receiver core has been this year.
Yep. And I also think that that's something you can look through the first 4 games that you can say that is going to be sustainable through the next 8 games of the regular season for sure. I think Nebraska feels good about that. And even, knock on wood, if someone does end up in the injury tent for a little bit, or, you're kind of missing someone has an off day or whatever, other guys are picking up the slack because it's happened every single week so far. We saw
who's after Quinn Clark is Keelan Smith, who is really, really talented.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's figured it all out yet, but really, really talented guy.
Yep.
Really talented guy.
Now, obviously, we can talk the tight ends and everything else, but the last one that I want to get on, and I didn't mean to do this, but it was 2 positives for the offense and almost 2 negatives when it comes to the defensive side. I had concerns when it came to the linebacking core when the season came up. I know that you were maybe not as high, obviously, where you were the defensive line, the defensive backfield, just because they were almost completely new names. And you mentioned Javin Wright kind of at the beginning. Marquise Watson-Trent has been, there. Dasan McCullough's, I think, appeared a bit more in the past 2 games than we saw in the first 2. What's your evaluation right now of where the linebackers are, especially coming off of a game when a lot of people from the general view wanted to blame defensive line and say, wow, they got manhandled? I thought the linebackers actually didn't have the best day when you look at totality of the defense against the Wolverines.
Yeah, I mean, I thought if I don't want to pick on anybody in particular, I thought Javin Wright struggled in run fits. I thought
it was a group effort. I mean, it was. Yeah,
I thought Buford struggled in some run fits. I love Shavers. I thought he struggled in some run fits. I've been hard on Singleton. I thought he was actually pretty good. Over the course of the last 3 games. I thought he struggled a little bit against Cincinnati. I thought he's been pretty good the last 3 games. So there's been kind of a mixed bag in run fits from both the secondary, the safety positions, and from the linebacking core. I will say for linebackers, and I thought there was going to be another negative on offense that you haven't brought up yet. Or a perceived negative at least.
Yeah, well, I just love my offense. I love my numbers. So.
I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. But
when you outscore 2 teams like 68 and 52, I mean,
like 127-7, no big deal.
No big deal.
But no, I think you look at it and you go, okay, I'm going to separate the jacks from this because Deshaun McCullough has been really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
And notably, I think it's more that you've heard his name more the past few weeks, that it's become, he's kind of the guy that leads that group, more than the first 2 games when I think he was doing the right things. It's just people weren't really giving him an opportunity to make those type of plays.
Yeah, so there's a part of me with the linebackers that I've got. Can we do hot takes here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Hail Varsity Postgame. It's a bye week. People are tuned in for a reason.
I've got kind of a hot take here.
Uh-oh.
He's only played 62 snaps so far, which compared to Deshaun Singleton's in on almost every play. So Deshaun Singleton's been on 168. This particular player's only played 62.
Mm-hmm.
I think by the end of the year, Dawson Merritt might be your best linebacker.
Oh, wow.
I think he's been really good.
Notably, he did play a couple of key snaps in Cincinnati as well.
And against Michigan. He was in late against Michigan. I think Dawson Merritt's really good.
Okay.
And I think, here's the other thing that I think is exciting, if I'm right about Dawson Merritt. I think it might allow you to move Shavers down to kind of a jack spot.
Which feels natural.
I think his skill set, I don't know if his body, but his skill set, I think more naturally fits kind of getting downhill, I think he's a really good natural pass rusher, even though he's not necessarily in a natural pass rusher's body. I think he's got a really good sense for it. If you can put Dawson Merritt out there at linebacker, I think you can maybe move even so, we talked about some of those, or Rule talked about some of those bear fronts a lot.
Yeah.
I think you can maybe even move McCullough and Shavers in at the same time, especially against some of these teams you think are going to want to run the ball. And that gives you the opportunity with those guys. Like, let's say people look at Minnesota as a team that wants to run it down your throat. They're not like Michigan. They're not in the tackle box a ton. They run a lot of outside zone. Having McCullough who can run on one side, Shavers who can run on one side, and then you've got Winery who we've seen chase down everybody.
Yep.
Run it inside of one of those guys. I think that actually gives you a lot of really interesting options if Dawson Merritt's good enough to play a majority of the snaps at linebacker. Now, I think Watson Trent's been okay as well. He missed some fits.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, he's been pretty good at that interior linebacker spot. I think the one that's been hard for me is I think there's been some fit issues with Wright and Watson Trent in particular, where I go, I don't even know if it's about the right fit, wrong fit. I need you to make your decision faster.
Yeah, right. And that's something you've been saying for a while. I mean, we've been talking on the post games that even against Akron, I remember we stayed up late for that one, but it just felt like the defense played so much faster, and that had to have been the conversation between 10 days of getting done with Cincinnati, arriving back from Kansas City, and getting ready for Akron, that the entire defense over the past 3 weeks, even against Michigan at some moments too, you could tell when everyone either was not confident, just said, hey, I'm going to just go full speed ahead and just see what happens, someone can clean up after me, or everyone knew their assignment and knew exactly where to go, and they were flying downhill and couldn't make plays like that.
Yeah, listen, I'm a big make your decisions fast, right? Wrong fast is better than right slow, because if you're right slow, then you make somebody else behind you wrong. Right? If you're wrong fast, you give somebody behind you the opportunity to be right. And so if you're in that spot, that would be my one gripe with the linebackers, Wright and Watson Trent specifically. And Shavers has missed some of these too, even though I really like him, and I think he, out of the group, has been the best. You look at those and you go, I need you to move. And listen, Watson Trent's playing up a level. He's playing FCS last year. I understand that. And Javen Wright hasn't played that much football. Like, he's been injured a ton. Like, he hasn't played that much football. So I think that will get better as the year moves on. If it doesn't, though, I think they're going to have to look at guys that are just going to play fast.
Yeah, I'm not a person to want to look through all the statistics because I don't believe that they actually show, especially defensively, like what the role of a lot of defenders are. But
I don't believe in statistics.
Okay, well, listen here. Offensive statistics are completely different.
That's a tough look for you.
But anyway, when I look at defensive statistics specifically, I do have a little bit of concern when I don't see that in the Big Ten Conference so far, Nebraska has only one player in the top 40 in total tackles. And to me, that just says one thing. It just kind of comes across as, where's Nebraska's impact defensive player? Because the past few years, you've been able to point out and say, even in the preseason, you could point and say directly, Ty Robinson's that guy. We can look back at a couple of years prior, and you can say Cam Taylor-Britt, they're going to shut down one side of the field with that. And you can go back years and years and years. And it felt like that's kind of been the case. This has been the first year that I could lean towards saying it's probably Williams-Nwaneri that's been that first kind of impact guy that, hey, he's had some really big moments. He had a really good Cincinnati game, like you mentioned, and we saw when we were at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, flattened out Bryce Underwood on a couple of key moments. Cam Lenhart had like a couple of key moments here and there, but I can't convince myself there's one guy on this defense right now through 4 games that I rely on to make that play.
Yeah, we're missing one here, right? Because right now we're thinking about run defense.
Right.
The impact player, Sierra Wright. Nobody's even throwing at that guy. Mm-hmm. They're not throwing at him.
That's a good point.
Like, nobody's throwing at Sierra Wright.
If you're being ignored on defense, that's sometimes a good thing.
As a corner, if they're just like, no numbers is great numbers, right? Because they want nothing to do with Sierra Wright at all.
Good argument.
I'm not sure I've seen for Nebraska since. I mean, we might be, and I don't know what type of.
Oh, you're not going back to Prince, are you?
Of people just not throwing at a guy?
That is true. They were going after a different all-conference corner because they wouldn't go to the other one.
Yeah, they were throwing it at Alfonso Dennard because they were like, well, we're not throwing at Prince.
Right.
Now, I think Andrew Marshall's been pretty good. He's obviously not as good as Sierra. I think he's been pretty good.
But you can also say, if you're a statistics guy, Andrew Marshall has all these different stats. Well, it's because they are going after him a little bit more.
They're throwing at him. Nobody's trying to throw on Sierra, right? Yeah, it'd be out of your mind.
Okay.
Right? So I think if you're looking at it at a holistic defensive level and not just run defense, Sierra Wright's been the impact defensive player. Nobody wants anything to do with that guy.
Right.
At all. And that is not like, that gives you so many advantages and that's the thing, honestly, if I'm frustrated about one thing with the Michigan game, is because you have a Sierra Wright, because I think your secondary is really good, because I think they can defend one-on-one, and cover with 4 guys, that they weren't more aggressive with run blitzes and trying to force their way into those run fits as opposed to read and react, because I do think they were a little slow and missed on some of the read and react stuff. If I were them, I'd be like, hey, Bryce Underwood, you get to try and beat us today. We are forcing your hand here because, listen, you can be like, oh, well, if you can't stop the run, then you're not going to have to pass. Make them, like, you can just keep putting more guys in the box until they're like, oh, we have to pass.
Yeah, I made the joke, make field goal block, and just be like, hey, islands everywhere. Just see what you can do.
I mean, listen, put 7 guys in the box and just like, all right, hey, we're playing ones here.
Yeah.
We're playing
We'll tell you exactly where it's going, Tom.
Man on man, like, good luck, bud.
Yep.
Like, let's do it. And I don't think that would be the one thing. Like, I don't know that they've taken advantage of what Sierra Wright allows you to do defensively in other spots, because he is basically just like, hey, no fly zone over here. Nobody gets to come to that side of the field anymore.
You have a great way of convincing me of ways that I'm wrong. I appreciate that. Hail Varsity Postgame today. Make sure that you're tuned in all the time. If you want more podcasts and all that stuff, you can check out Hurrdat Sports, Hail Varsity, and, of course, all the press conference comments that are going on throughout the bye week and getting ready for Michigan State next Saturday. All right, so we wanted to hit some grades for position groups. Now, I'll ask you this. Do you want to do them per position, or would you like to do that in terms of facet of the game? So passing game, rushing game, run defense, pass defense, or do you want to go down by position group? Because I feel like you may give alternate grades depending on how we do this.
Let's do by position group.
Okay.
Let's do by position group.
Let's start at the top, which one that should be fairly easy for us to begin with, and just kind of rattle one off at the beginning. Quarterback.
A+.
A plus.
A+. Yeah, because it's not just Dylan, right?
It's from the top down.
Which his numbers are incredible. Mm-hmm. Like, they're top 10 in the country in every number you would want. This is the first time in a long time I've been like, oh, I feel okay if the backup has to go in.
Yep.
And I'm not here for
be careful with that.
I'm not here for the people that are like, maybe we need to see a little more. No. Dylan's the best player on the team.
And also, let me give one little thing here, too. On that same note, the exact same people that I have seen, whether they're in Hurrdat Sports Live group chats or if they're talking about it online, just on Twitter and everything, I also, like you said, would love to see TJ Lateef get in the game the way that we've seen him before.
In blowouts.
But here's the thing, is the people saying, well, you might need his running ability just to give the defense a different look. Look me in the eyes and tell me you want the ball to go out of Dylan Raiola's hands.
Ever.
11-1 so far, and he leads the country in many different statistical categories, or is at least in the top 10.
He's top 10 in everything.
Why would you ever take the ball out of your number one option's hands?
He's the best player on the team.
There's no reason to do that. So let's all take a breath. Hey, it's a bye week for everybody, all right? Everyone relax, hit the hot tubs, do what you ever do. There's a sauna in the building now. Get in there, recover, and let's just get our minds right for Monday, because I'm tired of seeing this conversation.
I am as high on TJ Lateef as anybody. Young man's going to get paid, whether it's from Nebraska or somebody else. Like, he's going to make his money, and that's terrific, and I hope it's at Nebraska. But Dylan's the best player on the team. Dylan is one of... Like, I dare you to find 7 better quarterbacks in the country than Dylan Raiola.
They're not in the Big Ten, I'll tell you that.
They're not in the Big Ten, and they're sure as hell not in the SEC. I'm looking at you.
All right. Okay, so quarterbacks A+. I'm
looking at you, DJ Lagway.
Come on! You couldn't get away from one day of just not saying it?
I can't do it.
All right, so at the end of the show, I'm going to let you compare their stats, so that way you can do it. A+ for quarterback. Oh, great. That's great. Let's just keep down the offensive line. Let's go running back.
I'm gonna
kind of tough, right? A little bit harder.
B. I think Emmett's been really good. I think that I'd like to see a little bit more established behind them. I do weirdly think the Bonner injury hurt them there because they couldn't devote Mosey to that.
Right.
Because that's the guy that I'm super excited about. I just want that guy to get the ball in his hands as much as possible. I think he's a dynamic player. I think the Bonner injury weirdly hurt the running back room. I'll go B because everything behind Emmett Johnson has been incomplete at this point.
I'm going to go B-, just like a half step behind you, just because of the same thing. Would love to see the more opportunities given to number 2 running backs and be able to develop depth, but I'm not going to discredit where Emmett Johnson has done, like I said earlier in this episode. But I do also want there has to be execution when it comes to the backups getting on the field, right? Mm-hmm. And I understand they are freshmen; they're not going to be some of these high level transfers you were hoping to bring in this past offseason. But there were notable moments against Cincinnati, missed block here. Kind of a missed opportunity to bust out maybe a bigger run against lower non-conference opponents. When you get into conference play, there are some games, and we'll get to this later, that are still remaining on the schedule where those guys are going to be able to play and get in the game. I want to see them be able to execute, not just when the ball's in their hands. They got to do all the other stuff too.
I will say, when Ives has gotten in there, he's looked pretty good.
He has. And, I mean, you want to talk about a back that's actually improved from week 1 to week 4. He's probably taken the biggest leap in getting better.
I think Ives has been the second best running back so far.
Okay, so talking about running backs, we've already hit receivers and tight ends. We don't really have to do this too much. I'm more interested in where your tight end grade is.
Well, receivers, that's an A for me, and I'll move on. Like, great depth, great production.
I would even venture that should be the highest grade because I think their depth is better than anywhere else on the field.
Yeah, but Dylan's the best player on the team.
Fair, good point.
I don't have it. Yeah. I love Barney. Barney might be my favorite player on the team. I'm going to go an A.
Okay.
Tight ends is... I want to say, I think Lindemeyer's been really good.
Yeah.
I want to say a B+ here. I think Lindemeyer's been really good. I'm a little surprised they haven't found more ways to use Heinrich Harburg. I also think they're hurt by the fact that I think they were really counting on Mac Markway to do a lot of 2 tight end sets this year. And
we have seemed to forget that Mac Markway was going to be a significant part of this offense.
Yeah, like him and Lindemeyer were going to be co-starters, and I think he was ahead of Lindemeyer if it was just one or the other. I don't know that for sure. That's my conjecture. I think that's a big deal. I think that's hurt their depth quite a bit. I think we're basically going to be relying on both
Luke Lindemeyer?
Thank you.
Yeah, geez.
I kept just...
Did you want to go Ingerson?
No, I just kept wanting to say Carter Nelson, and that's the guy that that's the guy that I don't know. That's why it's a B+ for me and not more. I'll
be honest, I just forgot about Carter Nelson. Like, until you brought him up. Yeah.
So with Harburg and Nelson both, I think they're having a hard time figuring out ways to get them the ball, and especially with how good the receivers have been, I don't know that they feel pressed into that situation to try and get them the ball. But I do think those are a couple guys that can be dynamic playmakers for you. So at some point, especially if you have teams that I think are going to start playing kind of a shell over the top of their defense, those intermediate routes are going to be really important. Obviously, the receivers are capable. I do think that's a place where you might see some tight ends, so I'll go B+ so far.
I'm going to go, once again, B- because I have to be negative Nancy to all of your stuff. Yeah, how dare I?
Hater.
But when it does come to what we have seen from Luke Lindemeyer, I said it from that very first game, Luke is an NFL tight end, like 100%. I have seen it through the 4 games so far. I've been very impressed. He's also been a sneaky great outlet for Dylan, and we saw it in that very first drive against Michigan as well. Mm-hmm. I think that he has some sort of connection with Dylan that feels very confident that it's like,
I can find this guy.
Listen, I'm a Carolina Panther fan through and through. The way that Cam Newton found Greg Olsen in times as his number one target and also as hey, I got to get this ball out and I know one guy can get it.
Yeah.
He trusts Luke Lindenmeyer, I think, in that capacity, especially with the way the receivers have been used. The only argument I would have against it and why I try to lean a little bit less than where you are on that rating is because of the inability that we've seen to be able to incorporate some of the higher class and higher, rated players and people that had a lot of expectation and athleticism coming in from the offseason. And also, there's nothing I don't think that can really change that grade. Obviously, people can improve the run game, all that sort of stuff. But there is a part of me that says, I think Nebraska might be better if their tight ends aren't as involved because the receivers are so good.
Yeah, I think B+ is probably my ceiling on that group. I just don't know, with as good as the receivers are, I don't know that you're going to get a lot more out of them than that. I don't want, as much as I like Luke Lindenmeyer, I think he's a very good tight end, I don't want you targeting him 10 times at the cost of 4 targets to Barney, right?
But then the opposite side of that argument, obviously, is that when Luke has gotten the ball, he has done pretty well.
He's done well. Yeah.
So I think that's obviously a good point. All right, this has been probably the biggest point we haven't touched on so far that people have been, pounding their dashboards and listening in on their podcasts and stuff. What about the offensive line? Where do you grade them, especially after last week? Because to me, this grade would have probably changed for the majority of fans from week 1 to where we are in week 4.
Yeah, and this is another spot where I think rewatching the game changes how you feel about it, right? So I'm going to separate this out between interior and outside offensive linemen.
Right.
I think guard, center, guard, Nebraska's been very, very good. I would give them probably an A- guard, center, guard. I think Evans, Latovsky, and Spindler have been really good on the front there.
Also, not to mention depth, but Sam Sledge in there too when he gets in.
Yeah, Sam Sledge. I think Jake Peters has been in there. There's been a lot of. I think Machachek's been in there. They've got depth there. I really like that group. Before he got banged up a little bit, I think he's back now. But Grant Bricks got in there some. I think that's a really good group on the interior offensive line. The tackles, I'm probably at a C-.
Yeah.
I think most people would give them an F after last week.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case.
Again, we're going through 4 games. You got to remember Cincinnati. Cincinnati was pretty secure on the outsides.
And also, go back and watch. It's they weren't getting bull rushed into Dylan's lap, right?
Yep.
If you're going to get beat as a tackle, now they could have done. They for sure could have done better. And I'm not conceding that you're going to get beat as a tackle, which is why it's a C-, right? But if you're going to get beat as a tackle, you want to get beat with speed to the outside so your quarterback has a chance. If you get pushed into your quarterback's lap, he never has a shot, right? Watch some NFL games, right? There's so many good speed rushers in the NFL that guys get beat around the outside of tackles all the time.
Right.
You have to force them upfield as much as you can, which is a thing that they could have done much better at. They didn't do a great job of continuing to force them up the field. So that's a thing that I would want to see improvement on if you're not fast enough. And I'll be honest, with guys Prohaska's really, really tall, right? He's 6'8". He's going to have a hard time being quicker than those ends coming off, especially when you've got a Barnum or I don't remember, but number 1 for Michigan.
Yeah.
I think it's Barham, maybe, I don't know, whatever. When he's coming super wide, wide, he's an outside linebacker. He's not even a defensive lineman. Prohaska's not going to have a lot to offer him in terms of matching speed for speed, right? You have to try and push him up the field as much as possible to give Dylan escape routes through climbing the pocket. Now, that's the other thing. Dylan hasn't had to climb the pocket a ton, and climbing the pocket is an elite quarterback skill. It is not common. You don't see it from even all the NFL guys. A lot of guys in the NFL never figure it out. It is an elite level quarterback skill that Dylan hasn't really had to show yet. That's a thing I think he needs to continue to work on, and that would make the offensive line look quite a bit better. But if you're solid guard, center, guard in the middle, you're always going to have a chance. The places you can't lose are right up the middle because there's nothing you can do.
Right.
And then if you get beat on a bull rush from the outside, it's almost the same thing as getting beat up the middle. It really, really hampers you there. So I do think there's things they can do, even with existing personnel, to make that better. I also think that they can get consistent play out of Elijah Pritchett. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think Elijah Pritchett is the most talented tackle. And if you can get consistent play out of him and not have to play both Gatula and Prohaska at the same time, I think that can help quite a bit. The point being probably a C- for the tackles. I think an A- for the interior. That probably leaves me at about a C+. for the overall offensive
Now,
line.
it sounds obviously you talked a little bit more when it came to the pass protection, but run game, do you still feel the same way when it comes to kind of how that grade values out?
Yeah, I really don't have a huge problem with it. I thought that a lot of the run game is going to be predicated on, I think, the RPO action of Nebraska. I think we're going to see more and more of that as the season goes on. I think that's sort of their cheat code because of Dylan's ability to read both pre and post snap, where he can make a really good decision of to give the ball or to pass it and know where to pass it. I think that's going to be key for them. The offensive line, I actually think run blocking is their strength. I think a lot of those guys are like Latovsky, Elijah Pritchett, Spindler, Justin Evans. I think those 4 guys for sure are better run blockers than they are pass blockers. And so that doesn't change my grade at all. I mean, Emmett Johnson would have had 3 straight 100-yard games had he played even a little bit in the second half against Houston Christian.
Yep.
He had 65 yards rushing against Michigan, even though they weren't running the ball that much. Like I think the run blocking has been fine. I don't have an issue with the run blocking.
All right, let's move to defense. Do you want to start small or keep big?
I mean, we got to the defensive line a decent amount, so that should be reasonably quick.
Okay.
I would give them a C+.
Okay.
I think they're about the same place the offensive line has been. I need to see more out of them. I think because they are a younger group, I feel much more confident about their continued development over the course of the year. And I like the bodies there. Just as much as any group that hasn't like blown us out of the water yet, I like the bodies and the options there as much as any group. So C+, but I think trending up.
Yeah, I'm C+ with you too, and I think the thing that would completely change that grade by the time we hit season's end, or even by the next bye week when we're doing this again in a couple of weeks, is if you just get one impact player, like I had mentioned, obviously you brought up Sierra Wright on the defensive backside. If Williams Nwaneri becomes just an all-out wrecker, and the way that people have talked about him through the preseason, through his recruitment, through when we talked to Tim Verghese on Fridays and everything, if he becomes that type of established player sometime in this middle part of the conference season, look out. Because that means the entire defense gets better. And we know this because we've seen it through significant defensive linemen who are dominant at their position. Doesn't matter where they are. Ty Robinson dominated inside. He was a big enough difference maker inside. It opened up opportunities for other positions elsewhere. If he becomes this rush end or just a complete stalwart on one end of the line, it's going to open up opportunities, especially for Elijah Judy, who you want to talk about maybe the guy who improved the most from week 1 to week 4. That gives me reason for optimism. So it's like a C++. I want to be positive about it, but it's, again, like you said, maybe not where their standard is right now.
Yeah, so the big secret here is obviously if Williams Nwaneri can consistently become a havoc player, game changer, right? The other thing is if Elijah Judy plays the level he played against Michigan the rest of the year, that's also a game changer for Nebraska.
Yep.
That's the best game, I think, of his career, and he was one of the highest rated defenders on the entire defense against Michigan. That's the best game against your best opponent so far. That's a good thing to see. If you can get that level of consistency, I think that's huge. Then you need guys like Keona Davis and Riley Van Poppel and Cam Lenhart to pull up or like bring up their end of the deal as well. I definitely think there's the guys there to play the way they want to play and to make plays like that. But yeah, I really look at Judy to find this level of consistency and for Nwaneri to continue to improve.
On the linebacker side, I'll start with this one because I already talked linebackers a little bit ago. They're a C+ for me as well, and I think you could even lean maybe towards a B-, but the reason I give them the C+ is because they have made some impact plays. Vincent Shaver's forced fumble against Cincinnati was nearly kind of the death knell when it came to that game. Had Nebraska been able to put up a touchdown, it would have been a completely different type of outcome in how he looked at that game, but he still turned the tide of a contest in which Nebraska was still kind of teeter-tottering there in Arrowhead Stadium. On that same side, if Marquise Watson-Trent becomes half the player his statistics said over the past 2 years at Georgia Southern, he becomes a pretty good player for Nebraska this season. I think Dasan McCullough is going to be on just a hell-bent rise over the next 8 weeks. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what his game continues to look like moving forward, because the havoc wrecking he did against Michigan in certain moments, I think will continue to move forward. And I'm really hoping the linebackers get the grade as the most improved unit by the season's end, because I think then the sky becomes a limit for Nebraska, especially if the linebackers get moving the right way.
So I'm going to split out linebackers and jacks because it's two different grades for me. Linebackers for me is just a C. I think they've been average. I think the run fits have been concerning at times. I'm not sure that they're getting downhill as quickly as you need to. Their coverage has been pretty good for the most part, so I'll give them credit there for sure. but I do think it's a C for them. The Jacks, I think, I'm going to give them a full B. Deshaun McCullough has been really good. I haven't seen the depth behind him in the Jack spot that I want to. I'd like to see more out of Willis McGahee. I think physically he's capable. Jordan Ochoa is really good in practice. He hasn't looked very good in games so far, and his opportunities have been limited as a result of that. So because of the lack of depth there from other guys, I'm only going to give a B on the Jacks. But I guess if you want to combine those two, I'm probably where you're at as a C+ for the group. Deshaun McCullough has been really good. I think there's been good parts about the interior linebackers. I do think that's probably been the weak spot of the defense so far.
So secondary, to me, becomes very interesting because I have nightmares about, seeing the 22 film of, the CBS broadcast, and you see a couple of one-on-one opportunities or a guy getting blocked at the wrong moment against Michigan. Overall, though, I think you do have to lean a very positive note towards the secondary, and also because you have to feel good about, like we mentioned, the receivers, we didn't even get to secondary depth yet. They are rotating a couple guys in there that have all kind of made some different type of impact plays. But like you mentioned, and you've convinced me otherwise, Sierra Wright definitely deserves it. Yeah. I might have to go A-, or like if I'm going back to my plus rating, B++ as much as I can be.
Yeah, I was trying to decide, but I think I have to land on an A-. So I was trying to decide between an A and an A-.
They're one of the top pass defenses in the country for a reason. And if we're talking about the defensive line and linebackers not living up to snuff, the secondary must be doing something right.
Absolutely has lived up to their billing, and I think more. They're probably the group that is the most that has the largest margin of being better than I thought. And I thought they were going to be a good group. I did not see them being this level of being able to cover and pass defense. They're quite literally, I think, the best pass defense in the country through a third of the season. So that automatically puts you somewhere in the A's. Now, the run fits, I think there's lapses there, especially from I think Singleton's been better. I think they're still maybe not as urgent as they need to be out of that rover spot. And then Buford or Guthrie or whoever's kind of been rotating in there, I think needs to be better at that spot as well. So that's what keeps it. Honestly, if we were just talking about pass defense, A++.
Right.
Like, full stop, right? Best unit on the team, A++. Because of the run fit struggles. And then against Michigan, we did see, even from some of the guys that we really like, Andrew Marshall struggled with tackling a little bit. Even Sierra missed a tackle. Donovan Jones missed a couple tackles as well.
Guthrie was out of position a couple of times too.
Yep. So you look at that and you go, okay, so between the run fits and the tackling, that has to knock them down a couple spots, which is where I land on an A-.
So now looking back at the overall unit, special teams, we don't have to get into specific, but I figured this is the team that, again, that Husker fans are so scarred that they're not going to give as much positive praise as they want to. They'd rather look at the negatives. Mike Eckler has flipped this entire unit from one of the absolute worst to potentially maybe one of the best in the conference, maybe even the country.
Yeah, I can't get below a B+.
Yep.
I can't get below. Like if you wanted to push me into an A, I'm not gonna fight you on it. The kickoffs out of bounds have been weird and stupid, and I don't love that. But like, whatever.
Right.
Okay. Like that seems like a very fixable thing to do. You have 3 different guys that can kick off. You'll figure it out.
Yep.
They didn't kick it off out of bounds against Michigan, and
I think I would lean an A if you got like one of those touchdowns. Like if you just get like a special teams like score in there too, then you would be like, okay, I've seen it. Like everything that I had questions about, the big play opportunities, but they've all been there. Like we've seen the opportunities for them.
I mean, Ja'Cory Barney's been really good on punt returns. Obviously, he had the one he shouldn't have caught inside the 5, but
also I want my punt returner to be confident enough to catch it anywhere.
He's being aggressive. Like he is. We saw a couple where he picked up on a hop and he saved yardage and then got a bunch of yardage. He didn't just keep it from rolling. He's actually dynamic back there. So I can't get anywhere below a B+. If they had scored a touchdown at some point or blocked a kick at some point, they're definitely in the A's for me. But Archie's been great. Everything is advertised with Archie Wilson. Like everything they've said. Both feet, pinning it back, different spins, rolling out, the whole thing. Archie Wilson has been every bit as advertised, even though we've only actually seen him kick in 2 games so far. Kyle Kudanen, 1 missed field goal. He's made up 50-plus yarder. The snaps look clean. The extra points look clean. The rest of the field goals look clean.
It'll get lost in space and time, but that onside kick was nearly perfect.
Good kick.
Yeah.
The kick part was really good.
We haven't seen that. I mean, we've been, we as the Nebraska Collective have been a part of an ongoing onside kick meme that we can't seem to shake. It's really nice to actually have it go that way and be like, wow, you're that close to getting it.
I mean, and Coach Rule talked about that. Like, if Carter goes and make a play on the ball, like you've got a real shot there. So, I really don't have anything bad to say about special teams. They haven't made that huge dynamic play yet, but special teams is why you won the Cincinnati game.
Right.
I mean, full stop. Like, that's why you won the Cincinnati game. Dillon was really good. He executed at a high level, but Cincinnati did a really good job of keeping everything in front of them and then tackling once they did. Like, you don't win that game without the special teams effort that you got from especially Archie Wilson and Cunanan. So can't get any lower than a B+ on special teams. Really happy with how that's turned.
All right, so bye-week edition of Hail Varsity Postgame. Just a couple more in here before we wrap up. But again, a reminder that anytime the game wraps up, when we are in season and, of course, like in game week, you can listen to the game as soon as the game wraps up on the Hail Varsity YouTube, Herd at Sports YouTube, and across all of our social channels as well. Okay, so I wanted to ask you this question. We don't need to go through each different position group like we just did, but I want to ask you two different sides of the same question. Okay. Which assistant coaches do you think are facing the most pressure either to perform or to improve? Meaning, which assistant coach do you think is actually having maybe a little bit more weight on their shoulders in terms of, wow, the team is really relying on us to continue to perform where we've done through 4 games, and another coach that might be feeling a little more pressure on his seat saying, we got to get better and we got to get better quick?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think my feelings on it and what I think the fan base would say are very different. I know a lot of people have been really critical of Donovan Raiola. I'm not there.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think guard center guard has been really good. And here's the thing: everybody's looking for good tackles.
Yeah.
Everybody in the country. And if you look at, and I don't, people don't have to pay attention to this. That's fine. If you look at the recruiting and the guys that they are getting interested in them. Look at some of the guys they've landed in the last couple of classes. They're getting big, athletic guys. If you're not going to go out and buy tackles, which is really expensive and everybody's trying to do it, if you're not going to go out and do that, and I know they brought in Pritchett, but he also has multiple years left. I think they viewed him more as a developmental guy in terms of getting to his upside. If you're not just going to go out and buy tackles, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
You don't want those guys starting as redshirt freshmen or true sophomores or anything like that. Like, you want those guys to be in your program for probably into their 3rd year before they have to see the field. And we are in their 3rd year of Coach Rule. And so I think you're still dealing with a lot of guys from previous regimes on that offensive line. And I still think they've improved a lot. You're looking at guys that I think and again, we use this with Javen Wright. We haven't brought it up with Teddy Prohaska. That's an old guy that hasn't played a lot of football.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that matters there too. I think a lot of people would say Donnie Raiola. I think he's really good at what he does. I don't know any other way to put it. I get that we wish the tackles were a little bit better this year. Okay, fine. To me, that's not a reason to fire a guy.
Yeah.
But
I agree with what you're saying, though, in a different sense, that if the tackles improve in the offensive line essentially as a whole, right, takes that next step up and they improve from whatever grade we gave them from, whatever it was, a C or C plus to a B or B plus, how much better does the offense get then?
Yeah.
Because the offense is already doing pretty well.
Really well.
What's that next step that they take if those get shored up? I mean, that's the other part of it too that I think it's a nice part to think of if you want to be positive on your bye week for Husker fans.
In terms of guys that I actually think they need their position groups to improve the most, and I think this is one of the best coaches on the team. I think Rob Dvorak needs his group to
I'd agree
to improve quite a bit in this period of time, and I think they can. And then Terry Braden, I think he's got the bodies on that defensive line to have a really good group. Schematically and technically, they need to figure out a way to execute at a higher level.
Yeah.
For what I think the talent level is there. So
you and DB talked about it heading into the Michigan game, but if you were trying to project headlines and Nebraska wins, Nebraska finishes 10-2 this season. Who gets the most headlines for the improvement from this Michigan game to where they end up with only one more loss in the next 8 games? You're probably looking at Terry Braden and Rob Dvorak, right? And you're saying those 2 position groups improve the most to be able to get to that moment.
I think you're probably talking about, it seems like people forget about Dvorak all the time, so I don't know if we'd be talking about him. I think we'd be talking about...
His name's hard to spell, that's why.
It's true. There's a lot of consonants in there. I think you're probably talking about Braden or Raiola.
Okay.
I think you're probably talking about either Uncle Donnie or Terry Braden in terms of if by the end of the year I'm right and they're 10-2, you're talking about one of those two groups in the trenches having made a big leap from week 4 to the end of the year.
So you had 3 months to be able to do this next exercise. So last little bit here before we wrap up. Then we'll get another opportunity to do it after the next bye week. I want you to go through game by game, and let's try to rank the importance or the difficulty level, however you want to go through it, through the remaining 8 games in Nebraska's schedule, through what we've seen through 4 games. Because, again, a lot of people already want to throw up the doom flags and be able just to wave the white flag on this season saying, oh, we lost our first game, it must be over, right? The AP poll is not going to give Nebraska the credit that they deserve, all that good stuff, right? When you look through the rest of the schedule, it probably starts with Penn State still, as it did before the season began.
So, interestingly enough, I actually don't think Penn State's that important.
I kind of agree with you, and I would have argued that at the beginning of the year. But so let's do it that way, because it'd be easy to say, oh well, these top 25 teams are the hardest, and these teams are different.
I don't think that's not how I look at it at all.
But how about we look at it in terms of impact for Nebraska's season to get to their expectation has been a big keyword so far this week in press conferences.
Let's call it 9-3. Right?
Okay.
I was a little on the high end. Some people are at 8-4.
Yeah.
Let's call it split the difference at 9-3. Right. So if they are going to get to 9-3, what are the most important games for them to be able to get there? I think very, very high on the list. I don't know if you want me to do this like 1 through 10 or whatever.
Let's go 1 through 8, and I think I'm going to agree with you on number 1. I think we're on the same boat.
I think Michigan State might be number 1.
We are not on the same boat at all. I thought it was USC. I thought USC was going to be number 1.
I think Michigan State's number 1. Okay. I think how they come off this bye week, how they come off their first loss is going to tell us a lot about this football team.
Okay.
And Michigan State's not bad. It's a game Nebraska should win. And they're not going to get credit for winning it, which is why I think it's really important. You're coming off a loss. I thought this. Listen, before the season,
it's also technically your 5th straight home game.
Yeah, you can. Technically, your 4th straight. Cincinnati
what
was
I mean.
a neutral
That's why I said
side.
technically.
Technically,
I was one of 68,000 people in actual Husker red in Arrowhead. It's their 5th straight home game.
A lot of Chiefs fans there.
So I said Husker.
So I think that. And I said this before the season. You can go back and look on Herd at Sports social channels. I said Michigan State was a must-win game for Nebraska. And that's because regardless of what happened to Michigan, you were going to learn a lot about Nebraska against Michigan State.
Yeah.
Whether they won, whether they lost, how they were going to handle it. So honestly, my first game, I think, is Michigan State. I know it's kind of a hot take. This is not a bad team, but you're not going to get a ton of credit for beating them. You're coming off your first loss of the season. You're coming off your first bye week of the season. I think we're going to learn a ton about Nebraska against Michigan State. So that's my number 1.
It does have a little bit of UCLA vibes from last year, right? Because you walk into Ohio State, no one was going to give you a chance. It's different in that sense between Michigan and Ohio State from a year ago to this year. But if you look at it kind of in the same nutshell, it is a game that Nebraska lost close. Some people nationally will be already writing off Nebraska being oh, their season's kind of over, whatever, it doesn't matter about them. But then you look at the next week and it goes, okay, well, they're going to get a win over UCLA at home, right? And they don't perform and they don't show up in the game. A lot of wholesale changes have to come. Wholesale changes won't change if Nebraska doesn't beat Michigan State, but a lot of conversations would start if Nebraska doesn't show improvement and actually get a victory over the team from East Lansing.
Well, and I do think there is, I don't know if it's a one-to-one comparison, but I do think you can use it to measure, look how far we've come in the past year.
Yep.
In terms of culture, in terms of growth, in terms of maturity as a program. And hey, we don't do that anymore. That's why I think it's such an important game.
Okay, so the Big Ten has changed a little bit. I won't make you have to power rank every single game moving forward, but do you have more concern because everyone pointed to a Friday night in Minnesota saying that's a trap game for sure? But is it the week before now with Maryland? That's a team that's receiving top 25 votes.
I don't know what to do with Maryland.
It's Wisconsin's fault, truthfully.
So the first,
because I don't know what to do with Wisconsin. Well, I know what to do. Throw them in the bin and set it on fire.
Yeah,
but yeah,
throw them in the dumpster where they've always belonged. But
always
garbage state.
Not a cheese guy.
Maryland's really strange because their first 3 games are nothing opponents. And then I think Wisconsin sucks and has quit on their coach. So I don't know what to do with I don't know what to do with that, right? I think they got all geared up and tried to give Alabama their best shot with Wisconsin when they didn't come close there. I would be surprised if Luke Fickell survives the season.
Right.
So I don't know what to do with Maryland. I think Nebraska's better than they are. It is your first road game of the year, so that's a whole other thing. I think that's an important game. It's probably middle of the pack for me. I will say this next 4-game stretch, so Michigan State, at Maryland, at Minnesota, and then Northwestern at home, I think is critical.
Yep.
This is a stretch. Nebraska, Nebraska needs to go 4-0. None of those games are games that you can get by with losing, right? And I know, again, players, coaches don't think that way. Talking about it from a fan perspective, you can't get by with losing any of those games. Even if Maryland actually is good, doesn't matter.
Yep.
Like, you're getting 0 passes if you lose to Maryland.
Because you're Nebraska.
Because you're Nebraska. You should always beat Maryland. That's kind of just how it goes, right? I saw this up close and personal when Maryland was still in the ACC, and there were some years they were better than Florida State, and it didn't matter. Florida State couldn't lose to Maryland because it's Maryland, right? That's just what it is. So Nebraska's in the same boat as they are now, where they have to beat Maryland. They have to go out. They have to beat them. They're playing another true freshman quarterback in that one. You just got to go out and beat them. That's what it is. But this stretch in general, really, really critical. To go 4-0 in this stretch, I think would show a huge amount of improvement, a huge amount of maturity, and a huge amount of growth from Nebraska. So, like, all 3 of those games after Michigan State are probably middle of the pack for me because I can't put it as high as Iowa. You have to beat Iowa. And then I think you have to beat one of Penn State or USC.
Yeah.
Like, you need, out of the 3 games of teams equal or better to you, perception-wise, not necessarily reality-wise, I think you need to beat one of them to show, like, hey, here we go.
And listen, hey, if we do this show Saturday night and we know more about Penn State when they play Oregon, that game could completely change.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, we're going to learn a lot over the next coming weeks, and by the time Nebraska hits their next bye week on November 15th, the Big Ten is going to look completely different than what it is right now.
Can I be honest with you? I think Penn State's more gettable now than I did before the year. And not just because of how Penn State's played, but think about Drew Aller. Think about what Nebraska does well. Think about what Drew Aller doesn't do well. Run around, move, cause problems.
Everything that was an issue for this Michigan game.
And for Sorsby, for that matter.
Kind of positives for Nebraska moving into Happy Valley.
Not really a problem for Penn State and when you're going to... Now, horrible environment, whole thing, right? Like, and it's a good team. They're good, right? I just think from a very specific matchup standpoint, I still think Penn State wins that game, but I'm more optimistic about that game than I was before the year started.
Okay, so to land the plane, obviously we don't have to get in-depth about Northwestern, UCLA, and kind of the rest of them there.
I'd probably go UCLA last.
Okay.
You have to win that game. That's a terrible team. They fired their coach already. You just have to win that game, and you get no credit for it. That's 8 if I'm going 1-8. If Michigan State's 1, I think Iowa's 2. And because beating Iowa changes the course of how you feel about the season. It just always does, right?
That's true, yeah.
If it's between 7-8 or 8-9 or 9-10, winning or losing to Iowa changes how Nebraskans feel about the season.
That's why the Pinstripe Bowl didn't really feel all that warm and fuzzy, right?
Yeah, you would. If you're 7-5 going into that, having beat Iowa, you feel way different about last year, right? So that matters. So Iowa's probably number 2 for me. I think whichever USC or Penn State is probably 3, and then slot the rest of that next 4-game stretch after Michigan State right in there after.
So you're still not putting Maryland or Minnesota like up there?
No, I'm not. Because, again, you get no credit for beating them. You just need to do it. That's your day at work. You have to go to work those days. That's
true.
Like, you got to clock in. You got to put your 9 to 5 in. Those are work days. Like, you just got to go do it. I don't know how else to put it. If you're Nebraska, those are games that can't be like, those are games that cannot be like, you have to get up for them. And I mean, you got to get up for every game, right?
Yeah.
But they can't be the games where you're like, all right, here we go. Big road game against Maryland. That's going to be, hey, we're better than them. We got to go beat them. Same thing with Minnesota. Minnesota's been like that for a while. And Nebraska hasn't done a good job of playing against them. That needs to be, if Nebraska's where we want them to be or where they need to get going, those have to be games where you just clock in, hit your shift, get out of there with a W.
Okay, last one I've got for you, a quick one. Snap our fingers. It's November 15th. We're doing this again. It's a bye-week edition of Hail Varsity Postgame.
Okay.
Does Nebraska have a number on the left side?
Do they have are they ranked? Okay, so November 15th is after which game?
That would be after UCLA, so you would have just gotten through this entire next gauntlet. So Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, and you would have just played USC and then traveled to UCLA November 8th. You are right before Penn State, and they're probably gearing up to announce where Big Noon Kickoff and College Game Day are heading to next.
Is Nebraska ranked heading into Penn State? That's the question. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
All right. I like it. All right, we hit on Pretty much anything and everything that you could have needed for a bye week. I don't know what else you kind of want us to talk about at this point. Any last-minute details, any last gripes or anything that you want to get off your chest? DB's not in the room. He can't hurt you. I'm here for you.
He can't tell me to stop talking?
Yeah.
Which he never does anyway. But I just want to do a quick
I'm not
check.
going to call you childish or anything like that. Don't worry,
I'm definitely childish, and I'm definitely petty. We just got to do a quick check here, real quick.
Quick check.
I want to see. So.
Oh, hold on. Let me buy you some time. So if you are looking for more from Hail Varsity, of course, we've got all the Matt Rule press conferences, all the coaching press conferences, players, all the good content. Not to mention, we've also got exclusive interviews preseason with Harper Murray, with Dylan Raiola. You want to go check these out. Check them out at the Hail Varsity YouTube channel as well as on all of our social channels because it may be a bye week for Nebraska football. Volleyball season never ends, baby.
Never ends.
They keep going. They're number one. So what stats were you looking for? And I know who you were going to be talking about.
I just want to do a real quick comparison.
Please do.
Because I think Dylan Raiola, as I mentioned earlier, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I don't think you can name me 7 quarterbacks better than Dylan Raiola.
But there was one in the preseason that I could have named, I think. Not me personally, but the collective eye.
There was a name that I think literally everybody in national media named as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Certainly everybody had him over Dylan Raiola. And I would just like to do a quick check-in on our Lord and Savior, DJ
Marcel
Lagway.
Reed. DJ Lagway.
Just
right.
to see where he's at. Okay, so his team's 1-3. That's not great. Not ideal. Okay, but
what's Nebraska's record?
They're 3-1, so the opposite of that.
Gotcha.
Actually. Okay, so let's just do a quick check-in. He's completing 67.5% of his passes. Not
bad.
terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's actually up from last year. Good for him.
It is up from last year. Good for you, DJ. He's thrown for 690 yards, which across 4 games is 172 yards per game. Not great, especially when you've been losing. You've been throwing the ball a lot.
But
probably
he must have just immaculate rushing stats then to make up for those passing yards.
Well, he is a dual threat guy. This is what I was told was one of the big appeals about DJ Lagway. He has rushed for 23 yards.
Ooh.
0.9 yards per carry. 0 touchdowns. Speaking of touchdowns, he must have thrown for a lot of touchdowns. Wait, he's at 5.
Oh.
He's surely he's got 6 interceptions.
Ooh.
Having the reverse ratio, that's tough. He
not good.
leads the conference through 4 games in interceptions. Let's get into some analytics here a little bit.
Please, yes. Let's dive.
So 5.6 yards per attempt, that's pretty bad.
Wait, as a running back?
No, as a quarterback. That's through the air, through passing.
Yeah,
attempt.
that's tough.
4.23 air yards per attempt.
Well, that big arm, it can only go 4 yards.
Got to really gear up for that one. Let's do a comparison here. Okay, so Dylan Raiola, 75.6 completion percentage. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
1,137 yards. Pretty good.
Yeah.
11 touchdowns. That's more than twice what DJ Lagway has.
Yeah.
Only 1 interception.
Oh.
So that's a better ratio.
Right,
11-1 is better than 5-6. Let's check yards per attempt, 8.4. So double.
Right. Yeah.
Almost double what we had for one DJ Lagway. Air yards per attempt, actually higher. 9.72 yards in the air per attempt. So
is that legal?
That is well more than double of DJ Lagway's. Let's check, let's say, touchdown percentage, right? Because maybe Dylan's got a lot of attempts.
Right,
maybe,
that is true, yeah. Air raid, Dana Holgerson, notably.
Okay, so DJ Lagway has 4.1 touchdown percentage. That's the percentage of his throws that have turned into touchdowns. Dylan is double that.
Oh.
So 8.1. Oh, just shy of double that. I apologize.
Yeah.
40.
Jeez. Yeah. You don't want to get anyone upset by any means.
Yeah. And then let's check interception percentage, okay?
Let's.
So,
but interception percentage would be the amount of passes that get intercepted, right, that you've thrown over? Okay,
so
perfect, yeah.
4.9% of DJ Lagway's passes have been intercepted.
That's almost notably the same as his touchdown.
0.7% of Dylan's passes have been intercepted. And
Interesting.
he's thrown more passes too, right? So you would think there'd be more interceptions.
Right, yeah.
But there's not more interceptions. There's fewer interceptions for Dylan Raiola. So, I mean, just for a guy that I thought was going to be, or I was told, allegedly, was the best quarterback in the country, some said. He future number 1 draft pick, some people said. But speaking of number 1 draft pick, let's look at Lenore Sellers real quick. Let's just look.
Are we still doing this?
Let's just look real quick. Okay.
I was almost wrapped.
Yeah,
That's fine. You're right.
Just take a quick look. Just quick look. Please. He's been better than DJ has, And people think about that maybe
He's also been injured.
He got banged up a little bit, so let's look at what
Not that DJ Lagway's ever been injured.
No, I heard he's in a boot again, so that's good news.
Those boots are made for walking.
They are not made for playing football. Again, a mobile guy, so the rushing should really make a big difference here. 64% completion. That's actually down from last year.
And also down from DJ.
It is down from DJ, and it's a lot less than Dylan. 4 touchdown passes across 4 games. So
is that less than 11?
It's a lot less than 11. Also less than DJ. 733 yards passing, so that's more than DJ.
It's more than DJ in less games.
And same amount of games, fewer attempts.
Right.
Fewer attempts. Only 1 interception, so that's good.
Yeah, good job.
Same amount as Dylan, although twice the interception rate. He's at 1.4 compared to 0.7.
Yeah, good point.
Now his air yards per attempt, and he's right at 10. So yards per attempt, when he's pushing it downfield. So good for you, Lenore Sellers. Let's check those running stats though, because I was told great runner.
Right.
So he's at 34 attempts for 17 yards.
Ooh.
That's half a yard an attempt.
That's not good.
He has 1 touchdown.
Ooh. Well, good thing he did it in one of those 17 yards.
Future number 1 pick, Lenora Sellers.
Yeah, probably future Panther. It's fine.
You got Bryson? Never mind.
Okay. All right.
I think we're done here.
Okay, good. All right. Well,
should we do Arch Manning real quick?
Nope. We don't have time for Arch. Not today. He just crushed Sam Houston State, didn't you see?
He flexed on that kid.
Okay, all right. Leave him alone. All right. Well, that was Hail Varsity Postgame. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, whether it's on podcast, Apple, Spotify. You can also check it out, Herd Ad Sports and Hail Varsity YouTube. We'll have segments that go up later as well. So if you're looking for more, or if you are ever looking for anything Husker football, we are your one-stop shop for all of it. As always, tune in live every single morning, 7 to 10 for Herd At Sports Live on all those same bat channels. And if you're looking for more from Ravi Lulla, you can follow him at RALULLA. Ra Lulla, triple L, as I'm told.
Yeah. L3 is what DB likes to call me.
There you go.
Every morning on Herd At Sports Live, 7 to 10.
There you go. That's what we're talking about. Hail Varsity Postgame. For more, always check out all those podcast channels. We will see you again after the Michigan State final a week from today. Have a good one.
Go Big Red.